Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our first webinar series around employment, which is proudly hosted by the Cleft Lip and Palate Association and funded by the VTCT Foundation. My name is Laura Ainsworth and I'm the Adult Services Coordinator for CLAPA. Tonight we will be joined by three of our volunteers, Stav, Amanda and Andrew, who will host the series this evening. Tonight we'll be focusing on CV writing and applying for jobs. The purpose of these webinars is to build knowledge and confidence for adults living with a cleft by supporting them on their employment journey, offering advice and tips from volunteers with lived experience. So please do ask questions throughout the webinar, as hopefully we'll have time to answer them at the end. I'm now going to pass you over to Stav.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, everybody. My name is Stav. I have been working as a volunteer for CLAPA for quite a few years now. I think I'm going to say 4 or 5. I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, although you may not be able to tell now. I have had many operations, so I feel the pain. But here tonight, we are here to focus on CVs and applying for jobs. Now, we realise this will vary depending on your skills and the job that you're applying to. But we hopefully are here to, give you some helpful tips and advice really on how to highlight your skills, knowledge and experience and why you should be considered for the role that you are applying to. Now, we also have some, here we go, sorry, technical issue. We also have 2 volunteers here with me tonight who I want to introduce for you. We have the wonderful Andrew and Amanda. Do you want to say hi, guys? Maybe Andrew?
Hi there. Good evening, everybody. I'm Andrew. Been born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. I've been a volunteer for CLAPA for about 10 years, or probably more than that. And in that time, I've been co-chair of Adult Voices Council when it was operating in that way, on the committee for CLAPA Gosh when there were branches at that time. I'm also get invited back every year, which is a pleasure to do the tombola stall for the children and parents at Great Ormond Street Hospital. So it's a privilege to do that, and makes a little bit of money for CLAPA. And I'm also a peer supporter, which I've been doing for about 2 or 3 years as well. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Stav. Thank you, Andrew. Hi, I'm Amanda. Good evening and welcome to you all on this dark night. I was also born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, and I've been volunteering for CLAPA for I think nearly 20 years, which is just in various capacities. But really looking forward to speaking with you all tonight. Yes, I'm a volunteer for CLAPA, but my day job, I work in health research and I'm also a chartered psychologist.
Awesome, thank you, Amanda. So let's get this kick started. All right, where are we? So here we are. Here is a CV. I think this is a standard template that we have here at the moment. Let's kickstart this with, obviously we all have a cleft here, so it'd be nice to discuss this. Should you include details about your cleft on your CV? Now, personally, I don't, just because I don't see how that would really be of, let's say, of professional opinion when I'm applying to a job. When I'm applying to a job, I want to hopefully have my skills be the thing that shines the most, more so than me being, let's say, put into a different box or category for something that maybe a normal person, let's say, would or would not have. How about you guys, Amanda, Andrew? Would you put that on your CV or?
No, I don't think so. For the reasons that you said, Stav, I think it's better that the point that you're really trying to encourage an employer to look at your skill sets and your experiences.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Is the most important thing. At the interview, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But not at the CV stage and submitting a CV. I would omit it.
Exactly
Amanda?
the same. Exactly the same from me. It wouldn't really occur to me actually to put it on my CV, but yes, interview, perhaps if it was useful or relevant to talk about it and I felt comfortable to, depending on how the interview was going and how I found the employer, then yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think I do obviously put that I am a volunteer for CLAPA. I do think it brings up the conversation in an interview. I don't feel like it's something to shy away from. I think actually if I can educate that one person in the room who doesn't know what the condition is, then, you know, by all means, it's the best way for them to be educated is from someone who does have the cleft themselves. So yeah, I probably would avoid putting that on your CV, but if you wanted to, obviously it's down to personal choice. That is completely up to you. But let's move on to some general tips, let's say, for a CV. Now, like I said, we've got a standard template here. We have the name at the top and then the about me section, education. We're going to break these up into little sections just to kind of give you an overview of what you may or may not want to put onto your CV. Now, I would probably say keep a CV to maybe 2 sides maximum, A4. A long book is, you know, not what someone wants to be reading when they are looking to employ someone. Always stick to a typed and printed, easily readable CV, as you can see here. By all means, this is not a only template that you can use today. You've got so many out there online that you can definitely try and download and use and adapt to wherever you're applying to. But you know, using the font size maybe 11-12, just some general tips here, headings, keyword scanning as well, definitely very important. So I would probably put, as the skills are at the bottom on this particular CV, I would probably put it just at the top underneath my about me, just because then that way an employer can see on the first page straight away when they see read your name, who you are, what you actually can bring to the role, and if it's worth reading on, if that makes sense for you and the role that you are applying to. How about you guys? Do you guys have any tips for a general tip for creating a CV when you're very first starting? Amanda or Andrew?
You go first, Amanda.
I mean, I think keep it simple. I think as you put it here, just keep things so there is some white paper as well. But I think, you know, show it to someone else, get someone else to sense check it. You know, you know your own experience really well, but you're going to be sending it to perhaps multiple employers who you're just another CV. You know,
yeah.
So show it to someone else, someone who is going to be constructive, won't just say yes, it's wonderful. Yeah, so I would always have it sense checked as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, Amanda. And I think the way that the sample that is in front of us at the moment is really good because it's at a glance, and you know you can actually read that very, very quickly. It's informative. It's not, you know, it's not kind of excessive. It's just a really good sort of first page. So yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that, you know, when you're looking to build your CV, especially just to kind of highlight maybe a good 5 points that you know that you can bring to the job, depending on the job, because it will change. So you will maybe have to adapt the CV to the jobs that you're applying to. For example, a retail job will be different to an acting role. So you would have to definitely maybe tailor the CV to the particular position that you are applying to. Let's say your personal profile. So ideally we would want 3 to 6 lines, not too much for the personal profile, just maybe make it a bit more interesting other than a hardworking, reliable individual. I really do think I've come across so many that are the exact same, and I do just think people have just copied and pasted the personal profile. So definitely come up with a little bit more of an inventive and inviting tone. Mainly just get your personality across. That's the biggest thing I can say when you're writing your CV. Obviously, it's hard to be getting your personality across on paper, but that's going to be what the covering letter is for, and that's where you can kind of zhuzh it up a little bit. But that's for the next slide. A few skills and achievements definitely relate to the job description. I cannot stress this more. Please do read the job description. I think a lot of people never look at the specification when they're applying to a job, and they just assume that they are 100% going to be hired because of the skills that they have. That's not necessarily true. If you do look at your specification and then look at your skills, maybe you are right for the role, but you do have to kind of prove that in a way on your CV, because that will be the first thing that they see. I also would avoid putting any images on your CV unless like you are a model or a actress or actor. Then yeah, 100% why not? But I don't think an image on your CV is really needed. Maybe the times are changing because we do have LinkedIn now. People are putting their images online. That's the other thing I would say, to put your LinkedIn right at the top where the name is, just so that if they do want to verify and double check that you've got the exact information, they can find you online and see what you have to offer, let's say. And also that way you've got endorsements as well. So if you have endorsements backed up from other employers, that's even better for you. That'd be great for a backup and to hopefully be hireable. So now your employment and work history. So I would always say do it in reverse order. So whatever you are in now, work from that back to 10 years. So if you have let's say 10 years of experience, the 10 years previous to that will become a little bit irrelevant, because otherwise your CV will then go on and on and on of how many jobs that you have had. I would probably keep it to the 10-year mark if possible. So that would then keep it to a 2-page CV and readable, which is the main thing. Always check for, dates or accuracy and gaps, if there are any gaps. A lot of the time I just say I was traveling. How is anyone going to prove it? There's no wrong answer when they ask why is there a gap in your CV. I think it's very easy to get quite flustered when you're applying and you've applied to so many jobs, and sometimes you forget who you've actually applied to. But definitely, just focus on who you are. At the end of the day, they're hiring you. They don't really care about the gaps in your CV. They just want to know who are you and why should we hire you. Education and training, I would say probably put that at the bottom rather than putting it at the top, mainly because for me anyway, from my own experience, I do think that, at the moment now, education and training, you don't always have to have gone to university to get a top tier job. For example, my sibling, she has had more jobs than me and I've been at university. So it does show that you don't need the university tag. It's lovely, it's great to have, a great experience, but don't be discouraged if you haven't been to university. It's always actually more favored if you have more experience in the work field than getting a university degree, especially as I work in education. That's quite a bad thing for me to say, but I think it's best of both worlds, I do think, at the moment. How about you guys, Amanda and Andrew? Do you think you should put your education training at the bottom or at the top? How would you work it?
I think I'd put it probably at the bottom in a way, because your education is historical. It is what it is, so it's factual, and so and training is to some extent is the same. As far as training is concerned, I think I would say and recommend that you're going to put down stuff that's relevant in what you've done in training, that's relevant for that particular role that you're applying for, because you could have had some really good training in different things, but if it's not relevant to the role, to the job that you're applying for, then you don't want, an employer's not going to be too interested in it. So, in fact, what you do is you keep it really, really simple. I wouldn't be spending a lot of time as an employer, going through that. So, yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Amanda? What would you suggest?
I think it depends upon the role. So, for example, if the role requires a certain qualification, then I think that's different. Then you probably do need to bump that up the page and then maybe refer to education there. But if it doesn't specify any particular training or qualification, then I agree it could be down the bottom.
Yeah, okay, that's definitely something that we're all agreed on, so that's great. And then additional information. So additional information, it can be anything. It could be maybe if you're applying for a driving job, your driving license, when you got that, how long you've been driving, languages, if you have any, IT skills, particularly IT skills, because I think now after the pandemic, especially, well, during the pandemic we're still in, IT skills are, and actually, driving licenses are probably the two highest most in demand let's say roles at the minute, so it's definitely good to put that up at the top. And if you have any training or you want to go for training in those fields, by all means, I would probably definitely recommend it, as I think that is going to be the future, isn't it, really? Technology, like what we're doing right now, is going to be the future. Interests obviously include any activities that you show that are sociable and active, but avoid popping down that you're socializing with friends every day. Maybe not the most professional way to pop that onto your CV. All right, now references. So references,
So, Stav, can I just
Yeah.
interrupt you a
of
second?
course, yeah,
And just going back to additional information,
sure.
that could be quite important as an employer. You know, the things like gap in employment history, an opportunity to put in something there, because when an employer is going through the employment history, there very often could be gaps,
Oh, yeah.
and they need explaining. You know, that could come out, but you know that could come out in an interview, and actually could be very positive. But you know, but you need the opportunity at the outset to maybe explain why there's a gap, because otherwise you're leaving the employer not really knowing why there'd be a gap. You know, if there be some issues, it could be health, it could be that you've taken a year out to go travel the world, you know, something like that. So I think you should put something in there that would satisfy me if I was the employer to know, you know, why there was gaps in employment.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's definitely a great way of adding that into your CV. And of course, you can always pop that into a covering letter as well at the beginning or at the end, depending on the role that you are applying to. But yeah, so back to references. I would probably put on mine anyway. I put references available on request, mainly because sometimes the person that you have asked for a reference could have been 10 years ago and they might not have the same contact details that they have now. And also, if they want to verify, your identity, it should really be through you so that you can give them the correct information, rather than them, scouring the internet and figuring out who is the best available person to back you up and actually show that you are the right person for the role. Now moving on, okay, so we have covering letters. Here are two covering letters or examples of two covering letters here. I think this is your time to shine, really, with your covering letter. They add a context to your CV and they also allow you to sell your skills and experience to potential employers. Now this is one of the newer ways, I would say. In definitely in the past 5 years, covering letters have become even more of an interesting addition to your CV. They are quite demanding. I think time consuming is the word really to write, because they are going to differ from each role that you are going to apply to. Again, you will have to check out the job specification if you are going to write a cover letter. It will be different, like I said, from a retail job to a office job. There'll be different skills involved, but also they do cross over. But I do think sometimes this is kind of your time to bring your personality across. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, it's about impact, I think, you know, and what you really want to do with a CV and a cover letter is have, in both situations, is to ensure you've got something there that has an impact, and maybe you open it up with, or you state something in there that is a bit of a tease, where the person reading it, the employer, is going to say, oh, that's interesting. Wonder what happened in that situation. You know, something that draws out a desire to say, I think that's a really interesting thing that they pointed or done there. I'd like to know more about it. You know, it can stand out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it can also really put you out from a crowd, really, if you do have something that you can put in there that is different to somebody else's CV. And particularly if you are going to add it to your CV and someone else who hasn't added a cover letter to their CV, they'll think, okay, well, this will put more effort into applying rather than just handing me their CV. I know it's an extra step in the application process, but it's definitely well worth doing, I would say. And there's also a structure that we can follow here. So I would say no longer than 3 paragraphs, maybe at least 1 page for a cover letter, maybe no more than that, just because you don't want it to be too long. But again, if it's a big book, you don't want to be reading many pages of your story, let's say, and save that for the interview, and then they can actually really draw out more of your experiences. Let's say really focus on who will be reading the cover letter. So that employer, what will their mindset kind of be? You don't really know until you kind of read the job spec, which a lot of the time is what they're looking for. Research the organization and its culture. Research is key for any application that you are applying to, and don't rush. You can always go back and ask people to look over your cover letter. Maybe ask some people if they don't mind adding to your cover letter, that maybe there's something that you've told them in the past that you've forgotten that could actually add to your cover letter. Definitely look at the industry, how it operates, and any relevant news that maybe you can also add in to show that you're paying attention really to the industry. Company competitors and market position is also interesting. So if you show that you know the market really well, they are going to be thinking, okay, this person knows their stuff, I'm going to hire, or at least offer an interview to see what else they know. Organization goals over the next 5 years. Now, I always try and add in how I will help the five in the next 5 years. How will I be able to bring something different to that particular position, and how maybe that will highlight or think differently for the employer. Maybe they'll think, oh, okay, this is interesting, I want to question them on this more, so let's hand them an interview. And then when writing your cover letter, keep it brief, make sure that it emphasizes the suitability for the role, and it can be broken down into first paragraph, opening statement, setting out why you're writing your letter, second paragraph, highlight relevant experience and demonstrate how your skills match the specific requirements of the job description and the additional strengths. And then your third paragraph will be why you're suitable for the job, why you're attracted to this type of work, and what would interest you from the company and organization. Why are you applying to that particular company? And then last paragraph, use the closing paragraph just to round up your letter and reiterate your interest in the role, indicating your desire for personal interview. At the moment, I think that's all I can say on cover letters. Anybody else want to add anything?
No, I think that's it. I think it's all about a bit of impact, not too lengthy, and something that shows the employer that you've tried to match up some information with the company, the role, and maybe even, that you recognise that it's culture and so on. It's a lot to pack into what should be a fairly short letter.
Yeah.
So it just needs thinking through, drafting out something rather than just rushing through, because you think, well, I've done a great CV and now I'm going to do the cover letter, and you whiz through that a bit too quickly. Yeah, that's the first thing that's going to be seen. So that it's important that has some impact, and it's important that the cover letter doesn't duplicate stuff that you put in the CV.
Okay, on to the next slide then. I guess it's Andrew.
Okay. Well, from my perspective, you can probably tell I've been around a long time, and I guess in my working career, most of it's been spent in sort of management or sales and marketing. Broadly, I'm not going to give you history of that, would be all night, but to say that I've set up and run 2 companies quite successfully, and in that time, I've applied for jobs, but I've also been on the other side, receiving CVs, interviewing people. So as we go through other seminars and forward, hopefully share a bit of information on that. But I think applying for jobs and tips from as an employer is really making sure you do some homework on the company, and how that the role relates to the culture of that company, and how you can bring not only your skill sets, but how you would see yourself fitting in. And it depends what the job is. It could be a job where you're working on your own all the time, but in 2 situations, you've got where it's big company. The big company could be looking to employ somebody that's going to be working in a small group of people. For example, I've worked for a national company, but it's been split into branches. And when it's split into branches, it's like your own little company within a big company. The companies I ran were small businesses. So it was really, really important to me as an employer. One of the things I was looking at is the person might have the right skill sets, qualifications, and so on, and experience, but will they fit into my team? And that applies to a national company when it's split into a smaller group of people as it is to a small company. And I find, to me, that is so vital, because what I want to bring into my department, into my branch, or into my small company that I ran, is somebody that got all the right stuff on paper, but they're not going to fit in with my team for some reason. And I think, it's to be aware of that is, to me, is very important as an employer when I'm looking at people. And I don't know how to sort of put it across that how you get that into when you're applying, but the only way you can do is do research on companies. And at the moment, and as we all know, you can find out so much about people. You can it's so easy to Google a company and to a subject, and you can get an awful lot of background. So if I was looking at a CV and it come across that somebody had actually taken the trouble to find out about that, and you can't write too much in your covering letter or your CV, but something that recognises that you've done your homework on the company and that you could fit into that environment. And I suppose that's the key word. Will I fit into that organisation? Will I fit into its culture and the way it operates and its values and stuff like that? You can actually find that out, or you can speak to somebody that can give you that information.
I wonder, Andrew, as well, if that's a two-way thing. So you're checking if they're the right company for you as well.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Do their values match mine?
Exactly.
Am I getting a good rapport? Am I feeling this? So yeah. Anyway, just my thought.
Oh, great. Thank you, Andrew. That's really, really informative. I would probably say the exact same thing. Definitely do your research and go forward really in terms of applying and have the confidence to as well. Definitely remember that at the end of the day, they need you. So definitely make sure that you have that confidence to say, yeah, you know what, you need me and more than I need you, sort of thing.
And
Definitely...
sorry.
No, go.
Be yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Don't be afraid just to be yourself. None of us are perfect, and sometimes I think we all come out of an interview process like, oh, I wish I'd said that, we all do it.
Yeah, of course.
Just be natural as much as you can. It is all nerve-wracking, but just be yourself and let your personality come through. That's fine.
Yeah, good comments.
Right, so on to the next slide. Psychology tips. Amanda, this is your time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So I think we all have this kind of like the internal dialogue with ourselves. Okay, so if we're being a bit self-defeatist, which we definitely all do sometimes, if we're afraid of rejection, it's not me that they want, don't just let that sit with you. Have a conversation with someone, find a champion, someone to check in with. Okay, so job applications, they often start messy. But using the tips in this webinar, you will get better. Even the Beatles were rejected initially, and things kind of turned out okay for them. So find a champion, talk to them about your journey, but be honest with yourself. So I think sometimes we all procrastinate. If we find something quite difficult, it's a bit scary to do, we will all want to run in the other direction. Again, that's fine, but be honest with yourself that that's what you're doing. Are you stuck? Are you assuming that everyone is better than you? Okay, so again, talk to someone about that. And what I would say is, often it can be about luck, this whole job process, who are you up against, how many positions they have, etc., etc. Don't get carried away thinking about those things. Think about what you can control. Think about the skills that you have and the experience you have. Properly sit down with someone and discuss that, because we often don't have the opportunity to do that. So just be really clear on those things. No job hunt is perfect. There is no magic moment. hunt or research, get stuck in. Otherwise, you'll keep stopping yourself and you can be really crippled by perfectionism. Know that in time, you will develop skills around job hunting as you become more experienced. And I think very much you need to be persistent and manage setbacks. You know, in my 20s, I found it really hard to get a job for at least 18 months, and it was really, really tough. So I had to be persistent and, you know, manage that difficulty. And I think being born with a cleft can be really helpful in this regard. I think, you know, a lot of us have had to manage uncertainty. We've had to really show some strength and stamina. So think about what's helped you in difficult situations in the past and use them here too. Know what you want from a job, you know. Is it a particular company? Is it a particular salary? Is it part-time? Is it full-time? You know, keep learning from the process. Keep adding those skills to your CV, and volunteering also can be a great way of building experience. I think really importantly, stay motivated. And again, that's not always easy, but treat any job search like a job in itself, but it can feel quite overwhelming. So have small daily goals, and again, reach out to your contacts and keep building your professional network. And I would say, and again, from experience, don't let rejection get you down. And I know it's easier said than done.
Oh, yes.
We have all been rejected from jobs, all of us. I don't think I've ever met anyone who hasn't been. And the best you can do is learn from that and think, okay, that didn't work, but this is what I learned, and we go forward.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, on to the next slide.
Okay, so finally from me, just thinking about in the workplace itself. So I'm sure many of you will know that employers cannot discriminate against anyone with a long-term condition. So you have just as much of a chance of anyone else of securing the position. Now, there is something called a disability confidence scheme if your prospective employer has signed up to it. So some people do like to identify as a disabled person in an application. That is completely up to you how you define yourself. But what that does is that it encourages applications by offering an interview to any applicant who declares that he or she has a disability or long-term condition. So if the person meets the minimum criteria for the job as defined by the employer, then they are guaranteed an interview. As I say, this is not in any way compulsory. It is always within your control. You've got plenty of chance to disclose if you wish. If you choose not to in your cover letter, for example, you can in an interview. But again, you don't need to disclose it if you don't want to, especially if it doesn't affect your ability to do the job. But I think if you do decide to talk about your cleft in the interview, practice that beforehand. Explain how it affects you. If it does impact the activities and responsibilities, then talk about that. But, you know, make sure you're positive and talk about how you've overcome any hurdles. Now, very occasionally, and I have never ever had this happen, but if an interviewer seems distracted by your appearance, try to take control of the situation. So, for example, and this is something that the charity Changing Faces have suggested, you could say something like, I'm worried that you're not meeting my eye, and I'm not sure if you're hearing what I'm saying. Is everything okay? Now, this isn't easy, and you don't have to do this. If you'd rather, and you do want to follow it up, you can follow it up with HR or the recruitment agency. It is not acceptable. But I would stress, as I say, and I think, you know, I have a very obvious cleft, I think, and have been for scores of interviews in my life, and it's never once happened. If in the interview you would like to and you feel confident in doing so, you can, of course, reference your appearance in your answers. So, for example, having a cleft means that I'm used to making others comfortable and putting them at ease. For example, in a previous role, ... So again, these are absolutely optional, but if you would like to use them, you know, as I say, please practice them so you feel as confident as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I've ever had someone actually stop me in my tracks, but I would definitely use all of those tips, Amanda. Andrew, what do you think in that situation?
Yeah, I agree with all that Amanda said, really. And you've got to be yourself. And I think you've got to, show that that's not, your appearance isn't an issue. And you're brave enough to be quite prepared to talk about it as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, 100%.
one of the things I do a lot of have been doing quite a lot of public speaking over quite a lot of years. And the thoughts of that early stages of my employment would have scared me. And it was really confidence. But,
Yeah.
You overcome that, and you've got to, as you say, man, you've got to push yourself sometimes, and you will get sort of knockbacks. But when you get knockbacks and you get determination, you find you break through, and things that you thought might be really difficult, maybe an interview question or something like that, you're dreading, and you did it well. It makes up for all the half a dozen, things that have gone back in the past where you've gone away thinking, oh, what a mess I made of that. This perseverance, really, and that goes for anybody seeking a job, whether you've got a cleft or not. So don't, if your mindset is positive to say, I can do that job.
Yeah.
There's no reason why that person can't employ me.
Yeah.
That will come across.
Mm-hmm.
But if you come across thinking that they're thinking about, well, I don't know, this person's not quite blah, blah, blah. It's the same when people have said to me, when I said to people, I've got a cleft lip and palate, and they said, oh, if you hadn't have said anything, I wouldn't have known. And I, sometimes think, well, yeah, this is being polite, but we always think that the way we look is not what it is. It's not necessarily how people are going to perceive us. I think that's the thing that I've always kept in mind. And certainly if you're applying for a job, you'll go in there with that confidence saying, there's no reason why this person can't employ. I can do this job as well as the next person.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Really,
I agree.
Really into doing that, yeah.
Perfect. Yes, that's exactly how I would say to handle that situation. Now let's move on to some resources. So we've spoken a lot today about CVs and cover letters, and there's a lot of information there for you to unpack. We have the National Careers Service here, and they have a lot of skills assessments on there that you can choose to do, explore profiles, and also details of what job involves and courses that are available to you. Another one, a popular one, is prospects. I remember after uni, I definitely applied to quite a few prospects, or looked through quite a bit of the prospect site, which helped me kind of gain what I wanted from my own career. Obviously, it's down to you and what you feel you would like to move into. 60 transferable skills. And this is to help identify your skills quality as well. Truity, if you've never heard of this, I haven't heard of this one before. This is a new one to me. It explains what you're going to be doing and also how to give you some confidence in your professional role, and how to make you move forward in that, particularly in an interview. And lastly, Grammarly. Now, this is probably one of the biggest pet peeves of a lot of employers when they are looking at CVs. Grammar is so important. Definitely don't underestimate it. It's one of the most important things when we do look at the CV, to see if you are reading your CV, if you are actually doing what you say you are doing in your CV. And of course, for further information, please email adults@clapa.com. And questions? I think we're going to open up the floor.
Thanks, Stav. Really, really useful. I think it's also really, really important just to reiterate what you said at the beginning about making sure you read the job description and the person spec, and actually when you're applying for a position, which a lot of people do need to do nowadays, it's not just a case of a CV and a covering letter. You have to do a physical application. Is that you really read through the person spec and the job description and try and match your skills to that. So just a few questions that we've had sent in prior to this evening. So one of them is, how can I stand out from other applicants when applying for jobs? So anybody want to answer that one?
Yeah, I don't mind going first. That's a very difficult question because the thing is, everyone wants to stand out from a crowd. You have to remember that no CV is going to be the exact same. So nobody else that you have then, who else has applied for that same position, will have the exact same CV as you. So already you'll be standing out from a crowd because let's say, I for example, worked for a year in Cyprus where my family are from, and a lot of the time I do think that that does make me stand out because it's different to everyone who is applying from the UK. I was working in a completely different position to what I'm in now, which was to do with cryptocurrency and finances, totally different to what I'm doing now, but I do think it actually helped me get to the job that I'm into now in terms of marketing and events. So yeah, I think definitely remember that there won't be, no two CVs are ever going to be the same. So you are really the USP of that particular CV. So that's the best way I could say to stand out. How about you, Amanda?
I think a couple of things. I think I've been very fortunate to do some really diverse volunteering, and I've been able to talk about that. But also an unusual hobby can be quite, or activities can be quite interesting. I used to do I used to go on trapezes. And I'm not saying everyone should take up circus skills, that's not the take-home message, but something, you know, if it is a bit unusual, don't be afraid to say it, you know, even if it sounds a bit odd, because it's fine. And I think a lot of people took up new hobbies in lockdown, so just think about a different angle you can come in on as well. Andrew?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. I think I said earlier on, it's maybe including something that's just stands out, that's relevant, maybe not totally relevant to the job, but it can demonstrate a desire, as you know, even certain things that you do as hobbies or volunteer work, you know, which may not be associated with anything to do with the job, but it shows a certain aspect of your character, you know, as to why you know, if you do volunteer work, it's usually because you have a passion, isn't it? We're volunteers for CLAPA because we've got a passion, you know, but it can go for other things as well. And maybe they are hobbies, maybe you're doing some volunteer work because you're passionate about something, either because it's something that's happened to you or something's happening in your family. But that, to me, would demonstrate somebody's in character, which I'd be quite interested. It's because it's showing an aspect of that person's character, and B, if as an employer, I might find that interesting. I'd like to find out more about that. Oh, that's interesting. You know,
yeah, exactly. And you never know, that might actually connect with the employer.
Connect.
They might know someone who has a cleft, or even is in the field that your hobby is in. Let's say I bake quite a bit, and I've started my own little small business on the side of baking. So you know, who doesn't like cake? That's always the one thing that always comes up in my interviews, you know. So you haven't brought any cake with you today. But yeah, no, this is what I mean, little things. I agree, Andrew, make you stand out.
Thank you, guys. And the last question, I think, are there any free training courses I could get access to build up my skills and knowledge and add to my CV? Who wants to go first?
Not sure about that one.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm sure there are. There's definitely a lot out there. I think I remember you did send us one, but I can't remember the name of that particular course. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think one that myself and a few colleagues within CLAPA have actually used is the AIM group.
Okay.
So it's a national organisation, and it runs lots of different courses on there. So it may be worth looking at those. And also your local careers office may run some courses. And Amanda, did you
One has just come to mind. So the massive, have you heard of MOOCs? So massive open online courses.
Hi.
Yeah, that's a good one. And you can there's lots of different topics, and they tend to be free as well. So definitely check those out. So MOOC, MOOC.
Fab. Thank you. I think that's it for questions. So thank you for joining us tonight. We hope that you enjoyed this series. And if you did enjoy this series, then please do join us on the 3rd of November for our next webinar, which is going to be based around preparing for interview and interview techniques. We do have lots of exciting events coming up within CLAPA, so do head over to our webpage to for further information and to register for those. And I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Amanda, Andrew and Stav. You've been really amazing tonight. Really informative session.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. So thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the next one. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.